Greetings, I'm Kathy Green with Christian News and Interviews. And so today I'm going to talk just a little bit about the Defund the Police movement. And that's something I'm going to be following until further notice. I'd like to concentrate today on Minneapolis. Look at this. The world is looking at us. Minneapolis puts defund the police to a vote. The city will decide on a sweeping measure that would limit the size, scope, and influence of its police department. I have a question for you all. I don't know where you live, but wherever you are, would you be comfortable with your police department shrinking and being replaced with social workers, etc.? Let's check this out. Minneapolis. The Defund the Police movement got its start in Minneapolis last year. It might meet its end there in November. Minneapolis voters will decide on whether to adopt an amendment to the city's charter that would limit the size, scope, and influence of its police department, a first of its kind measure sparked by the 2020 killing of George Floyd by Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin. Let's move down a little bit. The amendment, and to a lesser extent, the mayoral race will provide the first ballot of a test of a big city police department overhaul. Okay, so now they're talking about an overhaul of the police in Minneapolis. Let's move down. Under the Yes for Minneapolis initiative, the Minneapolis Police Department would be replaced. Listen. Replaced with a Department of Public Safety, eliminating the city's required minimum number of police per capita and replacing some with social workers, mental health experts, and crisis managers, effectively defunding the local police by reallocating funds to other city services. Let's move down a little bit more. Advocates for the measure view the dramatic revamping as a necessity, one that predates Floyd's death. Okay, see if there's anything else here that I need to share with you before I give you my commentary. When everybody's in charge, nobody's in charge, Frey said in an interview. I think that would drastically diminish accountability. It would reduce clarity of command. Duh. Trying to see if there's anything else in here that's worth sharing with you all. Feel free to read the article on your own, of course. There is a scripture. Let me remind you all that this is Christian news and interviews, so I try to approach world events and articles from a Christian perspective, okay? Isaiah 3:5-8 says, and the people shall be oppressed. That would be us. That's us. We are oppressed by criminals, everyone by another, and everyone by his neighbor. So when they say neighbors, they're not talking just about our next door neighbor. They're talking about people in our surroundings can be oppressive towards us. The child shall behave himself proudly. The word proud in that situation is negatively. Against the ancient. So children shall be rude to the older people. And the base against the honorable. And it goes on and on and on. But the long and the short of it is, the Bible is just making it clear to us we are definitely in the last days. You know that scripture where it says that the father shall rise up against the son and the son shall attack his own mother, and we're in the last days. And so we're in a situation now where who would ever have imagined, as dangerous as it is out here, that somebody would want to take powers away from the police based on a few instances in this country of people being mistreated by the police. Oh, there are some dirty officers out here. The goal is to get rid of the dirty officers and to hire some decent ones. If someone's breaking into my house and I dial 911, I don't want a delay. I want the police to come immediately. And if we defund the police and we have less police in this area, it may take 15, 20, half an hour, an entire hour, or 2 to 3 hours for the police to show up. By then, this person has broken into my house and done heaven knows what. If I look out the window and I see someone get hit by well, that's not a good example, because if someone gets hit by a car, you would call for an ambulance, not the police. But okay, let me think. Okay, if I look out my window and I see someone carjacking a neighbor, if I dial 911, I don't want it to take 3 hours for a police officer to show up. If I'm in a dire situation, I want the officers to show up right away. Let me tell you what I don't want to show up. If I am the victim of a maniac in some way, I don't want a psychiatrist to show up. I don't want a social worker to show up. You know what I want to show up? A police officer. You know why? There are police officers all over the United States of America who encounter insane people, and guess what? Those officers get beat up, beat down, shot, threatened. Sometimes it takes 10 to 15 officers to take down one man. Have you ever heard of a drug called PCP? Ask police officers about it. When police officers show up to deal with the PCP, those people have abnormal strength. They have the strength of probably 50 or 60 men. And when someone is on a PCP high, it's going to take pretty much 15 to 20 officers to take that sucker down. So if someone shows up in your neighborhood high as a kite on PCP and wielding an axe or a sword, you don't need a psychiatrist or a psychologist or a social worker showing up. You know what you need? You need some police, and not a little bit, a whole lot. So for these nutcases who are telling us that we need to defund the police, I beg to differ. Now, this is part one. I'll be back next week with another state that has defunded the police and the immediate results of that state having an increase in crime. This is part one. I'll be back next week with part two. That's all for now.